My aunt always scoffed at my job, calling it a hobby. She'd chuckle over holiday dinners, oblivious to the confidence I masked beneath my smile. But everything shifted the day she learned it was my company that acquired the one she'd put her life into. A quaint hobby, she'd said, her laugh slicing through me like shards of ice. Her eyes, always brimming with that corporate smugness, saw my startup as nothing more than a child's game against her empire's towering prowess. I could feel the weight of her disbelief pressing down, like bricks stacking slowly on my chest. But dreams, they have a knack for persistence, for twisting away from the bruising grasp of doubt. Even as her empire seemed untouchable in the sterile glow of office lights, I held on. Years later, the walls she built began to tremble, her laughter turning to disbelief as my own small flame caught wind. This story isn't just about victory. It's about the sneering irony when fate decides that every empire, no matter how towering, can feel the shifting sands beneath its foundations. The dim glow of my computer screen was the only light in the room, flickering shadows flicking across the walls like phantoms of my own apprehensions. I sat hunched over the desk, the papers scattered around me a chaotic testament to the swirling whirlwind in my brain. Each sheet bore the embryonic stages of my dream, a fledgling startup, conceived from nothing but late-night ideas and coffee-fueled brainstorming. It was fragile, vulnerable to a gust of doubt strong enough to scatter it all into oblivion. I traced my finger along a line of jotted equations, as if trying to draw some warmth from their sterile precision. The whir of my computer fan was a low hum in the background, a comforting reminder of the machinery at my fingertips, capable of extraordinary transformation if only I could wield it right. But outside my little cocoon of ambition, the world felt uninviting and frigid, waiting to see if I would emerge victorious or shatter on the precipice of my dreams. When the phone buzzed, a dart of recognition sent a shiver up my spine. My aunt's name glowed on the screen, a beacon heralding either encouragement or critique. I hesitated, too aware of the impact those words might carry, then picked it up, forcing steeled optimism into a strained hello. "Hi," she began, the pause that followed pregnant with unspoken judgment. "I heard you're still working on whatever that is," she said, the words tumbling out wrapped in layers of disbelief. I braced myself, each passing second a slow erosion of the nascent confidence I clung to. "You need a real job. Something solid, dependable." Her tone was a whetstone, sharp and unyielding, and it cut through the fragile hope I'd built around me. I felt my grip on the papers tighten, the edge biting into my palm, drawing focus back from the encroaching fog of doubt. "We all need to grow up at some point," she finished, a dismissive laugh trailing behind her words like a specter intent on haunting. When the call ended, her voice echoed in the stillness, relentless in replaying those last biting words. It was true, I thought. A real job was what many expected, and my pursuit felt foolish, a reckless plunge without the safety of a parachute. I glanced again at my plans, each curve of pen ink now a reminder of that reckless hope. But beneath the sting of her words, I felt a simmering defiance rise, igniting a new energy within. Maybe she was right. Maybe this path was perilous, but it was mine. It was fuel, the challenge of disbelief, something that stoked the embers of resolve. I straightened, feeling a quiet but firm determination bloom in my chest. On the precipice of doubt, I only had one direction to move, forward. The sun poured through the office windows, casting golden bands on the polished wood of the conference table. It felt like a spotlight, warmer, softer, almost as if the universe was acknowledging this moment with a gentle touch. Everything around me hummed with the low buzz of conversation, the comforting rustle of papers, the occasional ring of a distant phone. My team occupied their usual positions around the table, their faces a mix of anticipation and accomplishment. Each person here had, in some way, been a brick in the foundation of something I'd once only dreamed of, a force of will manifest as an enterprise. I met their eyes, sensing the unity, the shared journey, even as my mind danced on a razor's edge of anticipation. In my hands, the phone seemed to pulse with life. The news perched there like a bird on a wire, ready to take flight and change everything. An opportunity. There was a chance to buy out a company, one threadbare and trembling on the verge of collapse. But the news bit deeper than just business. It carried the echo of family whispers, of holiday gatherings wrapped in tension. My aunt's business was the opportunity. The irony was tenacious, almost mocking. I let the thought hover, examining it like the fine edges of a blade. Are we doing this? Greg's voice cut through the warble of thoughts, bringing me back to the brightly lit room. The expectations, the eyes turned toward me now, all waiting. We are, I said, my voice steady, carrying weight like stones dropped in a pond. The ripples spread across the faces gathered here. Acknowledgement, readiness, determination. The acquisition papers lay before me, stark white against the dark wood. As they slid across the table, guided by my hand, they felt like old puzzle pieces finally locking into place, solidifying an image that had eluded me for years. The sound of pen on paper was a whisper, a quiet confirmation that an old chapter was about to meld with a new one. I could feel the history bubbling beneath my skin, each breath measured between past and present, each heartbeat a reminder. The triumph was there, undeniably, but so was the inevitability of what came next. A step back to step forward. I was ready, or at least determined to be. And, we're done, I announced, as ink dried beneath my fingertips. Beneath the calm veneer, a torrent of emotion swirled, satisfaction, fear, the ghost of past resentments wrapped in anticipation. My aunt's face surfaced in my mind, framed by years I could never quite forget. This was just the beginning, I realized, the first tremor of what promised to be a long, unpredictable journey home. Leaving the room, closing the door softly behind me, the air felt different, charged and thick with meaning. Ahead of me lay paths I had once vowed never to tread again, now opening like familiar arms beckoning for a long, overdue embrace. The air in my aunt's office crackles with electricity, a silent storm brewing as I step inside. This room used to intimidate me, with its high ceilings and imposing bookshelves, each tome a silent judge of my inadequacy. Today, its opulence feels suffocatingly familiar. It holds memories of moments I had long wished to forget, but that now clamor for attention from unseen corners. She sits behind her massive mahogany desk, the leather chair wearing her elegance like an extension of her glamour. For a moment, neither of us speaks, the room filled only with the soft ticking of the marble clock by the window, time marking the unbearable distance between us. Her eyes meet mine, a mirror reflecting not triumph but an unexpected surrender. They search mine for something they can't quite grasp, shadowed by disbelief, as if I've become someone she doesn't recognize, or perhaps someone she never wanted to see. The transformation hangs in the room, mingling with the scent of her expensive perfume, too sweet, almost cloying. I grip the back of the chair in front of her desk, my knuckles whitening with the effort to keep my composure. The texture of the chair's fabric is rough and unyielding, grounding me momentarily. There's a fire in my chest, a mix of anger and hurt that threatens to consume me. But for the first time, years of bitterness simmer into something bittersweet. A strange clarity settles over the tangled past we share. We haven't spoken a word, but a silent dialogue flashes between us. A confrontation fought with narrowed eyes and tight expressions. She opens her mouth as if to speak, but silence reigns, stronger than any verbal accusation. Her carefully curated world seems fragile, perched on the precipice of acknowledgement, dragged down by every unsaid word. You've always needed control. I finally manage, each word inching across the room like a gentle push at a house of cards. My voice, more a statement than an accusation, sits between us. It hangs there, neither an olive branch nor a weapon, just a truth too long silenced. Her lips press together, and in that gesture, I see 1,000 things unsaid. Regret, maybe. Resignation, certainly. She exhales, a sound that feels like an attempt at release. My dear aunt, once omnipotent in her domain, now a figure stripped of the illusion of authority by our mutual revelation. I turned my gaze to the window, where the rain began to splatter against the glass in relentless rhythm, as though mirroring my thoughts. And with the storm outside as our only witness, the silence shifts. It is no longer static but a hum of tentative understanding, a bridge, perhaps, to whatever would come next. I wait, the ending still unwritten in the steady tick of her ornate clock, each second layering unspoken realities between us. The conference room stretched out like a sterile expanse of glass and steel, a contrast to the turmoil inside me. Cold, almost robotic, a place built for transactions, not human moments like this. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that felt more like prison bars than illumination. My hand gripped the pen, its weight awkward against my tightening skin. Across from me, she sat. My aunt. Once the pillar, the voice of decisions and declarations, appeared diminished against the room's impersonal backdrop. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers twisting a handkerchief the way she once twisted her words to get what she wanted. But today, she wielded no power. It slipped from her, unraveling like the fabric she fumbled. Her eyes flickered to mine for a split second before retreating. I could see it, the erosion of certainty. Years of confident smiles and dismissive gestures reduced now to a fragile quiet. The formality of the paperwork was an ironic performance. She, who once orchestrated every event with a commanding flair, now faced with a script she didn't write and words she couldn't change. "I didn't see this coming," she whispered, her voice a thin thread of what filled rooms with echoes of her past dominance. The irony tasted bittersweet in my mouth, a mix of vindication and an unexpected hint of sorrow. I remember her laughter, loud and unapologetic, spilling over my childhood like a waterfall I could never swim against. Yet here I was, her once vibrant laughter hanging around us like a ghost of memories, mingling with the institutional chill. I drew a deep breath, steadying myself. "Neither did I," I replied softly, wanting the words to carry some balm for both of us amidst the cold reality being printed and signed on the documents before us. There was no courtroom drama, no triumphant exclamation of victory. Just this ceremony of signatures, the shuffle of papers like soft, muted cries resounding against the polished surfaces. The solicitor's presence was a silent observer, a necessary intrusion that kept the process moving with precise efficiency. He guided her through the legal maze with the steady patience of someone used to these stripped-down moments. Ink met paper. The roles had shifted, the control had flipped. She nodded, the motion carrying an air of resignation I never expected to witness. Her eyes fluttered over each page, not so much reading as acknowledging a farewell to the life she knew. In a final, simple signature, the last of her authority bled into the page, a formal dissent written in black ink. She looked up again, and her eyes met mine, the recognition in them a raw, honest acknowledgement of where we stood now. Somewhere beneath the formalities, something softened. A quiet realization rippled between us, a silent acceptance, an unspoken understanding that this was the new script we both must learn to read. In the dim glow of my desk lamp, success didn't feel like the laughter of satisfaction, but more like the gentle sigh of an old chapter closing. My office, usually buzzing with the eager energy of ambition, felt eerily silent. I leaned back, the leather chair creaking softly beneath my weight, an exhale whispering into the quiet. The documents, the tangible trophies of recent triumph, lay scattered across my desk, casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to stretch into the corners of the room. As the initial high of victory began to settle, an unfamiliar stillness crept in, unsettling the edges of my thoughts. I stared at the ceiling, tracing patterns in the textured white paint, my mind slipping back into memories I hadn't intended to visit. It was funny, in a way, how the journey from needing validation, from craving the acknowledgement of others, seemed so paramount once. I remembered the urgency, the desperate clawing for respect in a world that felt perpetually indifferent. Yet here I was, standing at what should feel like the pinnacle, glancing back at the path I took to get here. The room held the echoes of 1,000 late nights, of quiet triumphs and loud failures. It reflected back at me the faces and moments that had shaped this trajectory, a dance between light and shadow, between power and vulnerability. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet vibrations of my breathing guide me back to those pivotal points. A soft knock on the door broke me from my reverie. I considered ignoring it, allowing myself more space in this newfound silence. But instead, I called out a low "come in." The door creaked open to reveal my assistant, their face framed with questions they didn't speak aloud. They shuffled in, placing a file gently at the edge of the desk, their eyes catching mine with a flicker of understanding. I nodded, acknowledging the unspoken exchange, the bond built on shared commitments, unsaid words. They left as quietly as they had come, leaving me once again with the dim room and my thoughts. The documents and accolades were still there, talismans of battles won, yet I found myself grappling with the realization of their weight, or perhaps their lightness. They meant something, certainly, yet they also pointed to something more profound. Underneath the victories lay the intricate web of relationships and struggles that had propelled me forward. All the power and validation in the world wouldn't untangle the complexity of what it meant to reach for and hold onto those fleeting moments of triumph. Standing, I moved to the window, pushing it open to let the cool night air wash over me like a cleansing tide, carrying with it the distant hum of a city that never slept. I felt the night unfurl around me, full of possibilities and questions unanswered. And as I stood there, leaning against the sill, I understood. This was not an ending, but part of a continuing story, a single breath in the vast orchestration of time. The laugh echoes in my mind, not as a sharp weapon but as an old song, softened with time. I sit on the edge of my bed, staring at a faded photograph held loosely in my trembling hand. It's a simple scene, a family gathering, laughter frozen in time. Used to be, I'd see this and feel that familiar jab of shame pierce the surface. Every smile was a reminder of my failures to connect, every laugh a challenge I couldn't meet. But today something shifts. There's a peculiar calm threading through my veins. I study the faces, their contours softened by dust and age, and a realization anchors itself in my heart. The laughter that once felt like ridicule now carried the weight of lessons learned the hard way. I can almost hear their voices, gentle teasing cloaked in misunderstanding, but at its core, a desire to reach across the gap between us, a desire I'd ignored. I pressed the photo to my forehead, eyes sliding shut against a prick of tears that aren't born from old wounds, but from something else, something almost like gratitude. I let myself slip back into those rooms, those swirls of chatter and half-heard words, the low hum of familial chaos. I can now sense what was hidden beneath the surface, the tender, unspoken language of love camouflaged by jest. My brother's baritone laugh rises in my memory, a deep, resonant sound that used to make my skin crawl. Quit taking everything so seriously, he'd always say, ruffling my hair with affection masked as annoyance. I can almost feel his presence again, a solid warmth at my side rather than the irritating shadow I used to see. There's a relief in understanding now, like the ground has stopped shifting beneath my feet. I see that maybe they weren't laughing at me, but instead trying to laugh with me, inviting me into moments I was too stubbornly serious to join. This thought takes root and sprouts slowly, unfurling like a stubborn seed in frost. The past sweeps me up like a gentle breeze, hesitant but insistent, until I'm back in that living room, the musty couch under my palms, the TV low and ignored as we talk. My mother hands me a glass of tea, an olive branch in a porcelain cup. Her eyes are kind, tender, and teasing all at once. I remember feeling cornered by them back then, those eyes, expecting more than I could give. But that expectation, I see now, was merely hope. Hope that I could sift through the noise and see it too. The love, the messy, imperfect affection that had been there all along. The photo drops from my fingers. I let it float to the floor, releasing a long-held breath as if letting go of a weight pressing down on me for years. I'm still learning. But there's a notion now, nestled in my chest, that maybe it's not too late to understand, to truly belong to those faces, if only I can muster the courage to step forward. Sunlight spills across the thin carpet in my office, barely warming the chill that lingers from earlier arguments over budgets and deadlines. I'm hunched over a pile of invoices when the scent of jasmine invades the bland aroma of brewed coffee. It's familiar, her signature. Before I look up, I already know who it is. My heart drums a slow, contemplative beat, the kind that precedes the unexpected. Her silhouette in the doorway is a ghost from memories I've buried beneath years of resentment and misunderstanding. Aunt Helen. She stands there, arms crossed nervously, eyes flitting around like a bird assessing unstable ground. It's been months since we spoke last. Years since we truly talked. Hi, she ventures, her voice soft, testing the fragile bridge we're about to walk. Words jam in my throat, forming neither apologies nor accusations, just a silent nod that beckons her inside. As the door clicks shut, the world outside fades, leaving only the subdued rustle of paper and the tentative thrum of our presence. My office chair creaks under the weight of awkwardness while Aunt Helen hovers by the visitor's chair, considering ancient grievances before finally deciding to sit. I was around, she says, words stumbling like an awkward dance partner, and thought maybe we could talk. Talk. A simple word loaded with complexity, like the first chord of a song that neither of us knows all the lyrics to. Our eyes meet, searching, measuring, each of us wary of digging up the stubborn roots of past discord. I see you've redecorated, she observes, scanning the walls freshly adorned with serene landscapes, scenes I've chosen to dampen the chaos of deadlines and disputes. Her eyes settle on a photograph tucked on the corner of my desk, the one with brighter days captured in grainy 90s nostalgia. Mom's favorite picture. I murmur, letting nostalgia carve a path we daren't tread. She nods, a tearful smile tugging at her lips. Memory breezing in to curl around us like a silent promise of reconciliation. You know, she would hate this, Aunt Helen admits, humor infused with sorrow. We share a small laugh, timid and uneven, but there. It's something, a signal flaring in the fog of lingering tensions. Then silence, punctuated only by her measured breaths, until finally, cautiously, Aunt Helen utters, I see now. The words hang heavy, a confession dressed in a cloak of shared history. There's sincerity in her eyes, a willingness to mend what was frayed. I swallow my pride, letting vulnerability seep into the cracks, uncertainty loosening its grip on my heart. There's a stirring warmth in this small office, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we can unstitch the past, thread by thread, until all that remains is a new piece worth holding on to. The afternoon shifts outside, shadows elongate with time, and I nod, softly bridging the chasm with a simple, me too. It's not much, but it's a start, one small step on a path towards finding kinship where there was blame. The room still smelled faintly of her perfume, like lavender and old books, hints embedded in the worn leather of the chair now under my command. I sat there, feeling the weight of history pressing into my spine. The cityscape stretched beyond the glass, bathed in the warm hues of a setting sun. It framed our last chapter, casting shadows that stretched like fingers across the polished floor. She entered quietly, almost as if afraid to disturb the ghosts of arguments and ambitions that haunted this space. Her eyes, once sharp with determined fire, now softened, reflecting the twilight outside. She paused by the doorway, a hesitant smile playing on her lips, acknowledging this strange twist of fate that had her stepping into what was now my domain. We nodded, a silent agreement hanging in the air. Things were different now, simpler in their complexity. I gestured to the chair opposite, the one where I sat through countless stern lectures and painful silences. She took it gracefully, folding herself into the leather with the ease of someone returning to a familiar seat. For a moment, neither of us spoke, as if words might disrupt the fragile peace we'd both fought hard to obtain. The hum of the city underscored the quiet, cars passing below, distant laughter drifting from street corners. She glanced around, her gaze resting on the framed photographs of achievements hung with pride behind me, a gallery she once presided over. It suits you, she said finally, her voice carrying a note of warmth I hadn't often heard before. I nodded, a slow understanding forming in the space between us. I learned from the best, I replied, my words carrying a weight both of gratitude and of battles hard won. Her smile deepened, touching her eyes. It was as if the years peeled back, showing glimpses of the woman I admired, feared, struggled against. We talked then, not about the past missteps or victories, but about the small things, life creeping forward in peculiar ways. Her daughter's graduation, my trip to the coast, little pieces that wove the tapestry of today. As the sun dipped lower, casting an orange glow through the skyline, we fell into a comfortable silence again. The room felt different now, cleansed by the simple act of speaking truths without the need for defensive walls or barbed words. There was a sense of letting go in that quietude, an acceptance more profound than any apology could reach. The shadows lengthened, creeping across the walls like memories of bygone days. And in that moment, it was clear we were no longer adversaries. Just two people wrapped in the shared journey, Human, frail, connected by growth and the irony of life's twists. With a final nod, she rose, leaving behind a whisper of her presence in the still air. As the door clicked shut behind her, I felt the heavy blanket of past rivalries slide away, leaving only the warmth of shared humanity in its wake. The city hums quietly beneath the window, the evening light bathing everything in a soft, forgiving glow. It's a moment suspended, where the remnants of the storm have left the streets rinsed clean, and my own tangled thoughts follow suit, settling at last into calm. I can almost taste the fresh promise on the air, mixed with the fading scent of rain. I curl further into my armchair, feeling the warmth seep into me, as if the universe itself embraces my exhausted spirit. Everything feels open and yet cloaked in a comforting silence, the sort you only find once the tempest subsides. What a journey it's been, into depths I never imagined, both harrowing and redemptive, winding through shadows to arrive here, where I can finally breathe without feeling fractured. Outside, a bus wheezes to a stop, and that small, mundane sound pulls me into reflection. How far I've traveled, not just miles but lifetimes, it seems. My thoughts drift over the years, each moment a thread in a richer tapestry than either of us could have ever expected. Something deeper, more complex than the simple narratives we often cling to. I see now how they intertwine with time itself, reshaping what once seemed unchangeable. The room holds its breath along with me, as if in anticipation of what this newfound peace can offer. I can feel the weight of past decisions still settling unevenly across my shoulders, those moments where my actions carved new lines into the fabric of our lives. Yet, rather than be haunted by them, I'm struck by how each twist and fracture has yielded unexpected grace. A transformation, of us, of me, through choices both regrettable and right. And beneath it all lies the recognition that this isn't merely a conclusion, but a beginning wrapped in its end. Every resolution holds possibility, and there's a gentle joy in knowing that. The narrative didn't freeze as I once feared. Instead, it flows on, an unending stream I can only start to appreciate now. Perhaps that's what makes the conclusion so tender, so vital. The realization that being here, amidst all this tranquil beauty, signifies more than survival. It is rebirth, a second chance. The potential to redefine what it means to grow, to love, and to forgive ourselves as much as each other. To see myself as someone who emerged not just intact, but more whole than before. As the evening deepens, transforming the world beyond the glass, I take a deep breath, let it cleanse and ground me. I see the path ahead, blurred yet inviting. It's time to gather those threads and weave them into whatever tomorrow might bring. Softly, the city breathes with me, whispering promises of new beginnings and the uncharted days that lay waiting, ready to be lived, one heartbeat at a time.